Welcome to Hot Flashbacks, where we boldly navigate the ups and downs and unexpected detours of our 30s and 40s while finally recalling how clueless we were in our 20s. I'm Molly Ward, your captain through this midlife roller coaster. Stick around for laughs, life lessons, and maybe a few I can't believe I survived that stories. Follow our journey on Instagram and Facebook at Hot Flashbacks. Make sure to like, follow, and share so I can keep making these episodes. Let's dive in. This episode discusses sensitive topics, including alcoholism, divorce, and death. It may be emotionally challenging for some listeners, especially those who have experienced similar situations. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Hot Flashbacks. It's an awesome day here. Not because the weather is awesome, because it's not. It's cloudy and it's like rainy, snowy. But what's going to turn my day around is that I'm having a deep, meaningful discussion. Why are you laughing already? You can't laugh already. I'm having a deep, meaningful discussion with my friend Brooke. Now you say something.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Thank you for being with me today. I'm excited to chat with you.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. I think that when I think about people that I want to talk to, you come to my mind every time, but I can't have you on here for every episode because that would be weird. Oh, unless we started our own show, which, is not out of the question.
I'm down.
Okay. Just as long as there's no video, because as you can see, I didn't do my hair.
Oh, no. We are in the audio only era of our lives.
I like that. Yes. Somebody asked me, like, why don't you do a video podcast? And I was like, I don't think anybody wants to look at my face for that long. And I'm sure most people don't. I love
podcasts. I never want to watch a video version.
Agreed. I don't know, but there are people who do it really successfully. I think it's a different generation, though. I kind of wonder because, right, it seems like a YouTube thing for most people.
Yeah.
I know that you can do it on other platforms, and so maybe the younger people watch video podcasts. But you and I, we're not younger people, so I think we're doing.
No, we can release ourselves from those expectations.
I think we're doing exactly what we're supposed to do. As a matter of fact, if this was on tape, it would be like right up my alley.
Oh yeah, I still say books on tape. Yeah. Do you say that?
I do, and I also say when I'm recording something, sometimes I call it like a camcorder instead of like my phone.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, Brooke. Thanks for being here. Where do you live? Tell everybody where you live, because it's not here in Utah.
It is not in Utah. I am coming to you today from the 75 and sunny region of rural Alabama. So I live in a little town called Abbeville, Alabama.
I was going to tell you not to gloat about how nice the weather is, but you already did, and you live in Alabama.
Sorry,
so I feel like.
This is our 2-week window in the fall. We get 2 weeks in the spring. Just let me have it.
This is your time. Where is Abbeville? Give me like a city that you live close to that I would know.
Oh, there's none of those.
Okay.
If you're looking at Alabama, here's Florida. Here's Georgia.
Yep.
I'm right here.
Okay. In the middle, on the side.
So close. I'm directly north of Panama City Beach, Florida. Former spring break headquarters for MTV. So people in our generation might actually recognize.
Yeah, what do you know about that? Spring break. I haven't been on a spring break in forever.
I haven't been at Club La Vila all day. Not me.
I go to Alabama in the summer because so a friend of mine, shout out to my friend Whit, he has a lake house on a lake.
Is it Lake Martin?
Oh, I was going to say the name of the lake and forgot. So just said on a lake. But yeah, that's the one. Thank you. Yeah.
It's a good one.
Yeah. As far as lakes go, I'm into it. So we go there and I usually go visit him in the summer and we go in the boat and float in the water and do all the things. Have you been there?
Yeah. I've been to Lake Martin. One of my best friends from college is from that area. I dated a guy who had buddies that had places on Lake Martin. So I went there actually quite a bit in college.
Okay. It's really pretty. I'm into it. I would move to Alabama to live there for part of the year, but that's it. I don't like the rest of what y'all have going on, but you like it.
It is where I'm from.
Okay. So do you feel like it's where your heart is?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I feel because you and I met in New Orleans,
Right.
so I feel that my heart is split in two between New Orleans and rural Alabama.
Okay. I mean, it could be worse.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm here on the family peanut farm, working for a nonprofit, trying to do fun stuff. Like I reconnected with some high school friends from here. That there's not a lot socially that happens.
I can't
so we
imagine.
have to make our own fun. And we are having a Muppet Friendsgiving this week, where we're going to dress like Muppet characters and eat soup.
Whoa.
Everybody's different soup. So
how did we get to soup? Do Muppets eat soup, or is that like an Alabama Thanksgiving thing?
I think that was maybe just a hostess choice, but I'm into it.
Okay. I like soup, but only if I get like a lot of options about things to like put on the top. And by options, I just mean cheese. Just like.
Oh, I thought you meant corn chips, but
nope,
yes.
Just cheese. If I can put cheese on the soup, I'm down. So.
It's your season if it's snowing there.
I know, you're right. You're right. Actually, I made chicken and wild rice soup on Friday, and it was delicious.
That's
yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you have a good soupsgiving. Maybe I'll give that a try sometime. All right. So we chatted, and I've been wanting to talk about divorce. I think a lot of people in their middle ages experience divorce. And I started reading some statistics so that I could sound smart when I talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So what percentage of marriages end in divorce?
I think for people our age, it's over 50%.
Oh, I don't know.
No?
I wanted to make that wrong sound because I don't have sound effects on my show, but I'm considering adding them after that performance. So, okay. So there's actually two divorce rates. I didn't know this. So there is what's defined as a crude divorce rate, and then what's defined as the refined divorce rate. So the crude divorce rate refers to how many divorces occur per 1,000 people, which, I mean, is a statistic, but is not necessarily a statistic that's related to marriage, right? So it's per 1,000 people, not per 1,000 married people.
Marriages.
Yeah. So that's the crude divorce rate. And the refined divorce rate refers to how many divorces occur per 1,000 married women. I don't know why women, but that's apparently how the statistic works. Okay, so now give me your guess on the refined divorce rate this year.
This year?
Yeah.
39%.
Ooh, you're close. Yeah, you're close. It's 43.
Okay.
But that's actually down. It's been, the divorce rate has been steadily declining since the year 2000.
Okay.
Yeah, they saw the least number of divorces in 2020. As you might have guessed, that's more a result of legal, like the ability to legally do the work required during COVID, right? For judges weren't working, people weren't processing paperwork. It was difficult to go to the courthouse. But besides the year 2020, it's been a pretty steady decline. So fascinating. Molly, thanks for looking that up.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
It gives me a glimmer of hope. And I also did read that year 8 is generally the deciding year where most marriages end by year 8. And if you can make it past that, the statistics are more in your favor to stay married.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. So let's talk about marriage and divorce and I'll try not to make it super sad because I don't do sad, but it is like a major life event. You know how when you get your health insurance, they're like, okay, so this is your insurance. You're stuck with it forever, unless you have a life-altering event. And divorce is one of them. So I feel like...
I did not know that either.
Yeah. So like my open enrollment starts in like April and it closes in like June. And then July 1, that's like that. Those are your benefits. And the only way to change them within the next 364 days is to experience a life-altering event. So death of an immediate family member, divorce, having a baby.
Job change. Yeah.
Employment change. Yeah. So, okay. So let's rewind. Tell me a little bit about dating, engagement, leading up to marriage, timeline. Sort of fill us in with where you're at or where you were at.
Yeah. So my story might be outside the normal range. I dated the person I married for 13 years. And we lived together for most of it, went through some tough times, including some long distance stretches. And then we were just in a really good period. I had moved away for a job for a couple of years, moved back to New Orleans. And then we just decided, we were not that we were ready, but that it felt like the right time. We kind of wanted to reward ourselves for making it through all of this time as a dating couple. We felt like we wanted to reward ourselves with the legal benefits of getting married. And we, of course, we're looking forward to a big day where we celebrated what we had accomplished as a couple and got all of our friends and family together. So I married my partner, who was a man, in June of 2018. It was a huge year for us. There was, I became one of the parade directors of a large walking parade in New Orleans. And I also brought the international championships of roller derby to New Orleans that year. It was so busy, a lot going on, and I got married.
Okay, let's hold on. We got to pause the episode.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 roller derby. Let's talk about the parade. So,
yeah,
if you don't live in New Orleans, you don't understand that Brooke is a big deal. Right? Like if you live in New Orleans, you understand what parades mean. You understand what parades mean to the city, to the people, to Mardi Gras, to other seasons of the year. Brooke's a big deal. Okay, carry on.
Okay. I was president of the Intergalactic Crew of Chewbacca's for 5 years. And now I am an overlord emeritus. Overlords is what parade directors are called. So I'm still really involved. Still a real source of joy for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me talk about it. So after we got married, there was there's total honeymoon period. Even though we had been together for a long time, we just had this renewed kind of interest in each other and in dating, and it was lovely. And then the person I was married to, who had always struggled with heavy drinking, started really descending deeper into what I would call alcoholism. And it was a struggle for us. We talked about it, of course, like you do as a couple. We had arguments about it, but for the most part, it was just constructive criticism. He was doing therapy. He was working on it. And then in January of 2020, he decided to do dry January and was successful, like did the whole thing. And actually this is unfortunately involves the parade. February 1st was our parade that year. And so he got wasted on parade day. And that was an issue. And within a few weeks, within 3 weeks of starting drinking again, he was hospitalized for suicidal ideation.
So when people get sober, I think this applies to alcohol too, although I'm not an expert. I know with drugs in particular, once somebody gets sober for a period of time, when they relapse, they generally say that it's worse. Was that kind of the experience February 1st?
That was my experience. Yeah. And just the brain seemed to be involved in a way that it was never involved before. And then it was that, without going into too much detail, that led to a downward slide that involved him first going on FMLA leave with his job to try to go into recovery. But he got out and did the same went right back to drinking, was drinking within hours of being, of leaving rehab. And so by April of 2020, I had left the house. And of course, this is like the most stressful time that really any of us alive had experienced because it was the onset of lockdowns from COVID. And I can't deny that that was probably part of the severity of the issues on his end. But it was
like a contributing factor.
Difficult. Yeah, a contributing factor. And it felt so strange. I felt like I really knew this person. And then suddenly there was almost nothing there that was recognized.
That's something you probably don't bargain for or think about when you marry someone, right? It's like
yeah.
Is having like a child with a severe disability. Like you think about it, but you don't really think about it. And then when it happens,
right,
you have a lot to process. And so the idea that we change and we grow, I think we normally say that in a way that's very positive, right? That we're going to grow together and we're going to change. And I might like something that I didn't used to like, and you're still going to like accept me and care about me. But sometimes that growth or that change is not so positive. And then it's like,
right,
married to someone you feel like you don't know anymore.
Yeah, that's where I found myself. And I am the product of a very successful long-term marriage. I got married when I was 36, so I was older. And I was definitely one of those people who said, the number one predictor of a successful marriage is the age you get married. Like, I'm 36. I am totally in the clear. Like, this is a now and forever.
But it wasn't.
Yeah, it fell apart.
Yeah. Just to go back, I think it's interesting that you said that pretty much right out of rehab, the drinking began again. Normally what they say about sort of process going through rehab is that if you're able to stay sober, obviously the goal, but that relapse actually happens in phases. So that usually when you leave rehab, you'll go through like the emotional phase, which is when your feelings start to set the stage for, engaging in alcohol or drug use again, or whatever it is. Right. And that could be the feelings of like, all the things that you were feeling before amplified because you just got out of rehab and you still don't have the coping mechanisms necessary. And then there's the mental phase. And so that's when you actually start thinking about drinking or even having dreams about using again. And then the third phase is the part where you actually start using again. And so kind of makes me like just curious about that. I wonder like how successful he was, even though he wasn't using during rehab, probably wasn't actually doing the emotional labor or wasn't successful in doing the emotional labor necessary to, have sobriety for the long term.
Yeah, he when he was initially hospitalized for suicidal thoughts, I went to visit him and he was like, I'm absolutely doing everything I can to never be back here again. Just seemed really committed to doing better. And then that just really never happened once he was back at home. And then who knows how this happened in the timeline, but when he started drinking again after returning home, his brain was so involved. He had what some people call wet brain. There is a scientific name for it, but basically he had alcohol-induced dementia and was very, very angry. He was vitamin deficient because he was drinking so much. It blocked the absorption of vitamins in his body. And I think for him, the physical symptoms, the physical severity overtook any will that he had to do better.
So you're in the midst of that what was sort of was there a breaking point for you where you said, like, for myself, this is what I need to do, and then you filed for divorce? What did that look like?
Yeah. There was an incident. This is COVID times. And I was feeling very, very alone. I had some work friends over for a backyard hangout, and we had ordered some food, and we were actually in the front room of the house, still all socially distanced. We worked together, so we had some exposure, and in my mind, that was like, okay, we can make this work. And he barged into the room and made a big scene and told everybody to go home. And then he tried to get physical with me after they left. And he was physically pretty weak and intoxicated. And although I knew there wasn't a real chance that I would get hurt, it still really scared me.
Yeah. I mean, you need to feel safe in, like, I mean, it's one of the, hierarchies, right? Like, you feeling safe in your own home, particularly feeling safe with people that you love. So that can be traumatic.
Yeah. And I was afraid that I was just afraid of how unpredictable things had gotten. And so I gathered some things and left the very next morning.
And then, so leaving can be the hard part, right? The, like, getting your stuff together and, like, actually getting out the door and doing the things you need to do. Divorce is messy even when it's not. My parents divorced when I was young. I've seen friends go through it. It can be messy, life-changing. Sometimes most of the time, it's the best option, but is still really difficult. Without talking about all the legal difficulties, because that's boring. But it is impactful because, our system is really set up in a way, our country's legal system, that it's really difficult to navigate if you don't have resources. I mean, I have a master's degree. I didn't understand some of the documentation that I was looking at when I was helping a friend. And I'm like, how do people navigate this? Because without a lawyer, it can be very challenging. And in this case, you're probably thinking about divorcing someone who's not in a great place. How did that feel? And what did you do to navigate that?
In general, I am not great at putting myself first, but this was the one time that I, probably out of necessity, just decided that had to happen. And like you said, the laws can be complicated and they're different in every state. So in Louisiana, you have to be separated for at least 6 months. So I think that's on the longer end of waiting periods. So we both hired attorneys, and we're people who did not have children. So we had a jointly owned asset, the house. And so my attorney was initially like, hey, easy peasy. We'll sell the house, split the proceeds, done. And
it's never that easy.
She said,
It's never that easy. I mean, that's what you hope for, right? But like I said, it never seems to be that easy.
No. And because of his mental state, he would agree to one thing. And then when his attorney would call back and say, okay, got it all set up, he would make his attorney do something different.
Yeah.
And so the divorce was very, very expensive for what it should have been.
And how long did it take? Which is like the paperwork part?
Over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 14 months.
So did you file right after you took your 6-month separation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually filed before that, so I could claim that date on the separation.
Time served.
Time served.
Yeah. Oh,
and
Lord.
and then it ended up being really complicated beyond that. And during that time, of course, my attorney switched firms because there was a sexual harassment case at her old firm that she didn't want to be associated with one of the partners. And so sometimes the complications are just coming from the outside too.
Yeah. And it does. It takes a lot of time, the back and forth, and, giving someone time to give you the answer, like, okay, they're going to 30 days or, it takes a lot of time. Were you two talking at that point?
No.
Okay. So did you go like, you moved out, you left, and then you went no contact, or how did you navigate that with him?
No, that's a really good question. I actually physically helped him after we sold the house. I had to help him prepare the house for showings and sometimes cancel showings because he was not prepared to show them, like physically just not in a state. He was supposed to be out of the house, but he would be like intoxicated in the house. But I moved him, sold the house. I physically moved him into an apartment. And then after that, I went no contact. Got him set up in a new place. And then I just went silent.
So it seems like for those 6 months, if I'm guessing, it would be that you had to put all of your thoughts and feelings about the collapse of your marriage aside and focus on basically taking care of him and trying to make everything good so that you could be done eventually. Is that?
That's pretty accurate. Yeah.
Okay. That's got to be difficult.
Doing it. It was okay. I think because I knew there was an end date, and a lot of what I was doing was yard work to prepare the house to sell.
Oh, and we're old. We love that kind of thing. You're living your best life. Yeah.
Physical activity is the way to deal with things. So I was just like laying sod, kind of not comprehending how strange all of it was.
Yeah. Just disassociate long enough to do the things you had to do and then process later.
Yeah. That was the name of 2020 for me.
Yeah. 2020 was a rough year for a lot of people. That sounds like extra rough. So, okay. So you filed for divorce, took about a year or so to get through the paperwork. What is it like being single at that age? How old were you at that point?
Oh, I was 38.
Okay. And what's it like to be a divorcee? that's such a weird word. It's like,
it is weird.
It sounds like a word you'd use like in royalty, or like they'd say like in the Game of Thrones or something. Yeah. What's it like to be a divorcee, Brooke?
You realize the cool people are 20 years younger than you.
Hey, I'm pretty cool.
I mean, we're cool.
Okay.
But I call them the young and trendies. The young and trendies are like 25.
Yeah, you're right.
So that was something. For me, it was such a different experience because we were just inside all the time. I got really into, got even more into cooking than I was. Spent a lot of time with my 3 cats. I ordered some caftans.
Who?
Caftans, the flowy garments that that Dorothy on the Golden Girls wear. It's a caftan.
Okay.
A muumuu.
Well,
culturally.
I mean, okay. I know what you're talking about. It's like a robe, kind of, but it's flowier and bigger and fancier. And it sounds like something a divorcee would wear, right?
I was trying to lean into those things. Yeah.
And being single, good for your mental health. I'm assuming after an experience like that, and for as long as y'all were together, you probably weren't, looking to date necessarily. But what was the loneliness factor like?
Sometimes it was pretty lonely. I had 8 friends who would talk on the phone as much as I wanted. My family was also there in that way. So that was good. But I did a little bit of like therapy and Al-Anon at the time, and I realized that I had a tendency to want to just lie on the floor or on the ground on my back and just stay there. And through therapy, I learned that is called grounding.
Mm-hmm.
It's very common for people who are going through traumatic or dramatic experiences to do that. And so that was what my body just wanted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's a lot. And I think when you're by yourself, I mean, maybe the upside to sort of being alone at that point and having every other thing in your life kind of slow down because of COVID is that you were able to spend some time with you on your floor.
Yeah, on my floor. I did a lot of the lying down and grounding. And I also decided I was going to get flexible enough to do splits in both directions.
Oh, wow.
And so it was just a lot of time, watching some streaming television.
Did you watch Tiger King? Did you watch that?
Oh yeah.
Everybody watched that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing where like maybe, because like I imagine that at some point while you're laying on the ground, you thought to yourself, how did my life become such a shit show? Right. And then,
for sure.
Yeah. And then you're laying on the ground the next day and you're watching Tiger King and you're going, okay, my life is not as much of a shit show as it could be. All perspective.
I am doing okay.
I am okay. So statistically speaking, only 6% of divorced couples remarry, by the way, if you are interested in that. I know. It kind of seems high. I don't know. That seems like a lot. Anyway, so you're single, you're alone for the first time in probably a long time, right?
Long time, yeah.
And did you live alone?
Mm-hmm.
And when was the last time before that you lived by yourself?
My junior year of college.
Dang, see, so that's a long time.
That's a long time.
What was it like to sort of recondition yourself or get used to your environment and your new, really, lifestyle, right? Because you moved out, you were creating that distance that you needed. You were by yourself for the first time in a long time. What's that like?
Mm-hmm. It was really great. For me, it was calming to just have myself and my cats to worry about. Like I said, I'm not the greatest at putting myself first, and this just left me no other option. So I found a lot of meaning in it. It was really good.
But loneliness is a new feeling for you at that point, or did you feel lonely in your marriage at times?
I felt lonely in my marriage at times. Yeah. But, and part of why getting a divorce and what I went through was so strange is because I was such good friends with my partner. So even when there were moments of loneliness, we would always recover. And it was very disorienting to lose that. In a way, there was a certainty to the divorce lonely that I knew where I stood with myself and with everybody in my life.
Yeah. And it's almost maybe like a little bit expected. I think when you feel lonely in your marriage, it's probably like, this sucks. And why do I feel this way? And it's not supposed to be like this. But I think when you get a divorce, you probably think to yourself like, oh, I'm probably going to be lonely at some point. Right. So maybe there's some forecasting. And so you're able to kind of like be more emotionally prepared to be alone. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's very well said.
Thank you. I took a class on communication too, actually, in college. So I know. I think that for a lot of folks, loneliness is one of the bigger life fears. I went through a list of fears that people have in America. And loneliness is in the top 10 of things that people are most afraid of. And I think that to think that you will experience that probably at some point in your life, right? That there would probably be a time in your life where you experience true loneliness. Was it healing in some ways to sort of feel alone? Was it a necessary part of the process for you?
It was for me. I needed an end point, especially because things had gotten so wild. I mean, I was coming from such an uncertain place. Being lonely, being by myself, not knowing what to do was actually very I should say, not knowing where things go from here. That was a very comforting place because it was certain.
Yeah.
It was certain in its uncertainty. And I did take some comfort in knowing that a lot of other people had been there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like there's still a stigma about being divorced. And I watch really terrible reality TV shows sometimes. In particular, I like to watch like Love is Blind. I know I didn't want to say it out loud, but I enjoy it. And anyway, when they get in the pods and they meet these other people and they're just talking to them, that's kind of like one of the things that can be a red flag for people, is that they've been through that. The person they're talking to, who is now single, has been through a divorce. I think that probably changes at a certain age though, right? So like red flag if you're 22, right? And the person's 24, maybe you're like, whoa, what happened here? But 44, been through a divorce, probably like expected. How does that feel? Like, do you feel like you carry something with you? Is it something that you sort of, is just a part of your identity and you feel okay to talk about? Or is it something that you're more uncomfortable with than you expected? What is it like to, be a divorcee?
That's a very good question. I do feel some stigma about it just personally because it was something that I never wanted to do. It was an unofficial life goal of mine to never get divorced. And but I say that knowing that it was absolutely the best thing for me to do. And when I'm feeling some type of way about being divorced, I think, people used to have much shorter lifespans. Women used to not have as many rights as we had in 2020. And so marriage was a different deal. And that's why marriage duration was a lot different. Well, like I said, it was absolutely the right thing.
And expectations around marriage have changed, right? I mean, I think,
for sure.
Yeah, there was a reason people got married a long time ago. Then throughout the course of history, I think there's been different reasons why people continue to get married. And I think different expectations around how you take care of yourself in a marriage as well, societally. I think that there was a time when the expectation was that you just did whatever you had to do to stay in a relationship. There was not a lot of, compassion or understanding. And I think now we value ourselves and our mental health and when you know better, you do better. And so there is more of an understanding. It's got to be hard though to have, a goal in your life that really is only like 50% or less your choice. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it's to go back to your question about, do I talk about it? How do I tell people or that kind of thing? It's difficult because for me, my story includes the death of my former spouse. He died of complications from alcoholism. And so I feel like I can't just casually talk about my divorce story because it is so dramatic.
It's heavy.
And it's heavy. And, it's not cocktail party conversation. It's not, I got married when I was young and it didn't work out. It's much heavier than that. And I'm sensitive to his story and his struggles and his privacy. as well. So it's something that I will talk about but not casually.
Yeah.
I'll talk about it if I know one a little better.
Yeah, makes sense. These stories include someone else, and obviously someone you cared about and loved, and can recognize sort of like was dealing with a lot and just didn't do it very well. But I think addiction is sort of different in that way, as like, I don't want to say that like it's, you want to forgive differently, but I kind of think addiction can be tricky that way, because you recognize that it's an illness and it's difficult to recover from. And so there's an expectation, maybe even that you put on yourself, but that maybe others put on you too. And that is that like you be understanding and that you forgive, but it's still your trauma. So there's kind of this, does it feel like that double-edged sword in a way?
It's a constant balance. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I had an experience when I moved here to Utah, and someone that worked for me took their life, and I didn't know them very well. But one of the things I saw folks struggling with was that prior to that, this person had not been very pleasant, and a lot of people had feelings. And so then when that happened, it sort of, death by suicide already sort of rocks people's world. But then, when you've anybody who's dealing with and grieving a death, but also dealing with, oh, I was really mad at that person. They've done some really bad things to me. It can be a mind fuck, if you will, right? I mean, I would assume that you're going through both sides of like, I can't believe that this all happened to me and everything that this person put me through. But then also being asked, obviously, by other people and even by yourself to recognize that he had an issue and he was doing his best. And how did we get here?
Yeah. It's interesting that you brought up what happened to you, because that is actually how one of his doctors described what he was doing to himself. That it was actually a death by suicide. He just chose a long-term method. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a neighbor. I have a neighbor. That's it. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I have a neighbor, and I talk to him sometimes seasonally, because when it's cold, we don't see each other. And then when it's nice, I'm like, oh, hey. And so we chatted this summer, and he said, my brother's wife left him. And I was really nervous that he was going to, not be able to get his life back together. And turns out he's not. And he decided and verbally, confirmed that he was going to drink himself to death. That like, that was the plan for essentially what you said, right? Is like, he wanted to die, and that was the method that he was choosing. So yeah, he drank until he died. And for some people, it can take a little bit longer, depending on, how much, but it was the 6-7 months maybe. And
yeah,
and that was
I'm
it.
very sorry for your neighbor. That's really daunting to know.
Yeah. I made him some cookies after that though, because I felt like he was having a tough time. He lives alone. I don't think he listens to this show. But he lives alone. And when I knocked on his door after that conversation, like the next day, to give him back some, tool I borrowed, he had told me that it was his birthday. And I was like, oh, well, like, happy birthday. Like, what are you doing? And he was like, well, this is it. And he's a really nice guy. And he doesn't come across as like particularly like super sad, lonely, depressed, but like it's his birthday, So I came home and we made him some cookies, and I brought them over to him. And so I'm hoping that turned his whole world around. I mean,
it was probably made his day.
Yeah, we'll go with day. Okay, we'll go with day. But you know what a nice baked good can do for someone's soul.
I do.
Yeah.
And I have been at points where kitchen towels comforted me.
Oh.
So I actually, when I was post leaving my ex-husband, I was moving, right? And found, or I guess in the move, I had found some kitchen towels that were my friend Dewan's. You know her as well.
I do.
And just knowing that, because I used to do some cooking for her and her boys. She used to live like right down the road from me and had to be out of town like one night a week or something. So I was doing cooking on the night that she was out of town, and there were a lot of dishes and things exchanged back and forth. And I found a towel that had ended up with me. And it was such a nice connection to that part of my life. Maybe when I was looking for some good things from the recent past that I needed. And yeah, dish towels.
Nice. Yeah, I think, I mean, I'm in the same camp as you in terms of like, one, liking Duan, and two, thinking cooking and baking is like soul healing. At least for me. And even better when you can give it to someone. My wife is always like, why are you making all of these cookies and we only get to eat like 3? And I'm like, well, they're so like, I want to give them to people. And I really like to make stuff and give it to other people. I probably bake more things for other people than I do for myself. I just like the process.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So in hindsight, when you think about your divorce and the process and how far you've come and maybe how far you still would like to go or things that you may still be working on, what was some of the hardest parts to overcome emotionally?
The hardest parts for me are letting go of some people in my life who are so closely associated with that relationship. I just can't be around them anymore, like his parents. I am still in communication with them. It is just very spare. And these are 2 people who I love dearly. But that's very, I'm still working on it. And I'm still angry. I'm angry that it happened and that I was forced to deal with those things. So that's another area I'm just still working through. Most days it's fine. I have a wonderful therapist here who's just her saying things like, "You've been through a lot," helps me deal with the things.
Yeah,
So
validation.
It's good. Yeah.
What's on the other side? Like what's the bright side of the silver lining, if you will, of your experience and what's to come for you?
Yeah. The accomplishment of getting through it is good.
Yeah.
Feels good. Feels like I'm a stronger person.
Yeah.
And I am a lot more thoughtful about relationships now, because I got into that relationship when I was pretty young. And like a lot of things in my life, I never saw an alternative. That was just the thing that I was doing. That was the person I was with. And to have that rug pulled out from under you, it is illuminating to know that, things are not certain. Even the things that you believe are. And I think it makes me more thankful and hopefully more present.
Yeah. So when you say that was who you were with, that was what you were doing, and you didn't think about any other option, was that out of like, just out of curiosity, was that out of loyalty? Or, because I mean, I could see that what you're saying as a real positive, a loyalty to commitment, and really not envisioning or thinking about what my life would be like if I chose something different than this. But when I hear you say it, it sounds more like maybe you didn't give yourself the benefit of the doubt to recognize that there could be other options or things for you. Is that, how would you describe that?
It's actually more of the former. Like I said, we had a good relationship that had a lot of flexibility built into it. Like I said, there were some long distance periods, and we were just such good friends. I did not think, I thought that who I was with and the relationship I was in was the best place for me. And I thought like we all think, nothing's perfect, but But for me, I was really happy in that relationship for the vast, vast majority of the time. And so it was just a hard shift when things change.
Yeah. Do you think divorce is easier in your middle ages than it would have been if you were 25?
I think so. Yeah. Just I have more of an idea of who I am and what I want in this phase of my life than I did before. And I've lived enough to know that I'm going to be okay. Things are going to go on, like I've seen other people go through similar or even, more dramatic experiences. So yeah, I think it's better now.
And what is your outlook like on love and relationships now?
Oh, it's good. I actually got together with one of my best friends, which was totally unexpected.
Yeah.
And of course that gives me some confidence about love and relationships. But in general, I've always been really positive about love and relationships. I just think that the heart is a never-ending resource, and even when we feel our lowest, it's gonna bounce back.
Yeah, that's really positive. Thank you for that. It feels like a good solid stopping point. I'm glad that you've come out on the other side and not particularly jaded, because I think the hard part about when I think about this particular scenario, I think the hard part is like feeling like, not that you want it to be your fault, right? Nobody ever wants it to be their fault, but to have it like so out of your control that something sort of happened to you, I guess, in saying like, hey, I never want to get a divorce, but then like I'm left with no other option. That feeling of not having that control, I think, would give me pause.
Yeah, it was maddening. But there was no way around it. The only way out was through. And, it was a meditation in patience, persistence. I'm not quite sure what the right word is, but yeah, there's one way out.
If there's one thing that you've learned about yourself through this process, what is it? It's been most valuable to you sort of moving forward?
That I need to speak up for myself often and early. And I do regret that I didn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the end of any relationship, I think you will have regret about something, because, we're not perfect people. And so having that sort of regret and saying like, I wish I think is the way that you heal and grow, so that you can bring that with you into your next, relationship. And I'm not going to ask you, because this is my equivalent of people asking if you're going to have a baby. Okay. This is like, you don't ask people if they're going to have a baby. So I'm not going to ask you, but I am going to tell you that 40% of, well, no, actually, wait. Okay. So second marriages and third marriages fail more often than first marriages. Okay.
Okay.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe people are going from one to the next without enough thought, without enough learning. I mean, third marriages make sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Second makes less sense.
Okay. Did you know there's a term for when you get divorced at an older age? It's called, wait for it, gray divorce.
Gray divorce.
Because your hair's gray. See what they did there? Gray. It says,
what if my hair is colored?
It says gray divorce is a term that's used for people who end a marriage at 50 or older. So you didn't have one of those.
Oh,
yeah, you didn't have one of those. But yeah, it looks like third marriages by far have the highest divorce rate at about 75%.
Ooh, that's rough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty. Second marriages are at 55%.
Okay.
So, like I said, not asking questions, just I'm doing my due diligence. And one other thing, though, to consider along with that is that divorcees are more likely to die earlier than people that are married. So,
whoa,
I know, statistically speaking, it's like, don't get married because the divorce rate's high. And then this is your second marriage, so the divorce rate is higher. But if you don't get married, don't worry because you're probably just going to die. It says that, especially for men, apparently, they bear the brunt of that statistic. But in the U.S., the life expectancy for men in the U.S. is 74, and life expectancy for women is 80. But apparently, the life expectancy decreases by 20% for divorcee men.
That check.
Yeah.
You should have a spinoff podcast called Comfort in Statistics.
Okay. I don't know though. I felt like I just gave you like really conflicting statistics. Like you should get married because you want to live longer, but then just so you know, you probably more likely to get divorced this time. And you're like, what do I do? Can't win for losing. Yeah.
Yeah. I booked the statistics the first time I got married.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll just continue to do that.
Well, and think about this, like maybe the statistic isn't a bad thing. Maybe it's because, as we age, we have clarity. We know when to end things. We're not too far in. Maybe we set up our marriage financially so that when it's over, it's not as messy. Like maybe we're just smarter the second time around. And so getting the divorce, maybe, I mean, I like that phrase, or there's like a quote, and I'm not going to say it the way that they say it, but it's something about like how, people are not always meant to be in your life forever. That like, if we can find meaning in the fact that, granted, the way your divorce happened and your marriage ended was not awesome, but is there a place where you have a great relationship in marriage to someone that lasts 15 years. And then you're like, wow, that was awesome. I'm not happy anymore. I think new phase of my life, but I'm really grateful for what we had, that was like a thing. And I'm not angry about it, that like time does things to us and it's okay to have a divorce. And maybe that's why the second time around, it's not so much likely as maybe people are like more prepared and more willing to say, hey, I'm actually not going to sit through this because it's terrible for me. Or I just don't want to, this isn't what I see for myself moving forward, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I fully believe that is what could be going on there with those statistics. And I think the stigma of divorce is fading because the exact idea that you brought up, that some people are not in our lives forever, that idea is becoming more prevalent. And we could probably credit it to a lot of things. But yeah, I really feel that. I mean, people have been in my life for a few months and had a lasting impact. I have had some very intense Mardi Gras Day interactions with people who are still in my brain.
Or bearing their soul to you on the parade route.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mardi Gras after very real. But yeah, I studied poetry for, in my English lit program. And so I can get very theoretical and very idea oriented, but I really do see the beauty in those moments, in the kitchen towels. Like that's what life is.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for ending on that wonderful note. And thank you for chatting today about something that I know is difficult. And like I said, you'll probably be continuing to process for a long time in many different ways. But thank you for being vulnerable and sharing with us.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. It's so good to talk to you.
You too. This is Hot Flashbacks. We're out. We know these stories can be tough to hear. If you found yourself relating to any of what our guests shared today, please remember that help is available. You can always call the SAMHSA National Hotline at 1-800-662-HELP for confidential support. We truly hope you and your loved ones find the help and support you need. Thank you for listening. Want more? We're on all the major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Just search for Hot Flashbacks and subscribe.